So, hopefully later this week, I'm going to be making some marmalade. I've ordered some Seville oranges. And I haven't got enough of these smaller jars. And I do use honey quite a lot, so I bought these jars of honey today because I had to go out again. Because I bought some new clogs off eBay. My old ones. Like, I've got 2 pairs of old ones that are still relatively functional. And one's pretty messed up, so I don't wear them if I'm going out anywhere. And the other one's more or less okay, but it won't be long before they wear out. So I don't want to wait I never wait till things like that wear out before I buy the next one, because then I end up having to pay whatever the price of something is. And it's better to be looking in advance so I can find them at a better price. And after Christmas is a really good time to buy things like that, because people get them as Christmas presents and they don't want them. And then they sell them on eBay. So, usually, it would be at least £25. At least £20 rather, and more like £25 to buy a pair of clogs. And I got these for 10, basically. Here's my new clogs. And they're really good as well. The sole of them, the wood sole, has been varnished, which it isn't usually. So I don't know how much they would have cost if I paid the full price for them. They were on auction. And no one else bid for them, so I got them. So that was really good. But I paid less postage, you see. It was only about £2.50 postage, because I had them delivered to the post office rather than having them delivered here. So I had to go up to the post office this morning to pick them up. And it was just hell. So while I was there, when I was coming back, I went in Asda to buy a few things. And since I was looking on all the supermarkets, you say, to see which one would have Seville oranges in. Asda doesn't sell them at all, ever. They're only available in December and January, and sometimes into February. Sometimes they're available as early as December. But everywhere else they're not available until the end of January, and the only place where they're allegedly available this week is Waitrose. So, which is quite an expensive supermarket. So I don't usually shop there. But I had to spend £40 for them to deliver it. So hopefully my Seville oranges are going to come on Thursday. By which time I'll have cleaned these jars and taken the labels off. I've got more than that. I've been collecting them for ages because I knew I wanted to make some marmalade. And I had loads and loads of appropriately sized jars. Because Tony used to save them for me when I was making jam all the time and selling it in the church. But then I told him to stop saving them for me because I got banned from going to the church, so there was no point making it anymore. So anyway, then I got to the point where I made so much jam last year that I didn't have any of these jars left. And I do use the honey, and it doesn't go off, so I'm just emptying it into bigger jars, which I've got a lot of the bigger ones. Because blackstrap molasses, you say. 2 tablespoons of that a day I have because it's absolutely full of minerals. So I got very ill from the psychiatric drugs they forced on me, and I didn't know it was that was making me so ill, because I was obviously getting older at the same time, and I thought maybe I'm just, getting older and this is how it is. But it just dragged on and on with things that seemed unusual, like I was very sensitive to touch, like if I even knocked myself a little bit, it was like, I'd been hit by an axe or something, that's what it felt like. And like if I had, for example, a stomachache, it'd be 1,000 times worse than I would expect to have a stomachache. So it was just awful. So I thought, well, all of this started when they force drugged me. And I'm going to see if there's anything like nutritionally that I can do to help myself improve physically. So I did some research on the internet and I decided I was going to start eating a very nutritious diet. And then I found out that a lot of the dietary advice that we're given in the West is completely false. Like not eating saturated fat, for example, and eating seed oils is supposed to be healthy, and it's completely the opposite. And it's all been driven by market forces and people paying the government to promote their products. So anyway, one of the things I did, because I didn't believe this, I didn't believe this information that I was being given, really. I mean, I didn't disbelieve it either. But I thought a lot of this information is contradictory to what I've been told previously. So I needed some way of testing it out. Well, they said that you can reverse greying in your hair by eating 2 tablespoons of blackstrap molasses every day. So I didn't believe that. But I bought some blackstrap molasses and I thought I'm going to try this. And my hair had gone nearly totally grey. Because the stress, you see, I went from having virtually no grey hair to my hair being nearly completely grey between 2009 and 2011, and I also had chest pains because of all the stress of the gang stalking. So my hair went really grey. And I thought, this just can't be true. Like, I'd go to the hairdressers to have my hair cut, and when I looked at the hair that was on the floor, it was grey hair, even though it didn't look quite that grey on my head. It did when the hairdresser like cut off bits of it and it was on the floor. I was looking at mainly grey hair on the floor. So anyway, I started eating this blackstrap molasses, 2 tablespoons a day. And the grey grew out of my hair. You know if someone dyes the hair and then the colour grows out? Well, that's what it was like. The grey grew out of my hair. And the hairdresser was really shocked. She didn't say anything. But you know, they sit you in front of a mirror and they're cutting your hair. I could see her face. And the way she was standing back with her scissors and a comb in her hand, staring at my hair like she couldn't believe her eyes. And that was because the grey was growing out. And she'd obviously never seen that before. So now, my hair is mostly its natural colour. And when I go to the hairdressers, it's dark hair that's on the floor where previously it was grey hair. So I reversed that with blackstrap molasses. And the reason that it reversed that is because greying hair is due to a deficiency of copper, which stops your body producing the pigment that makes your hair whatever its natural colour is. And there's so many minerals in blackstrap molasses. It's the final boiling of the sugar cane, you say. When they make white sugar, they've taken all the minerals out of it. And the goo that's left at the end is blackstrap molasses. So it's got all the minerals in it. And the other thing as well is, because naturopathy treats the whole body, this deficiency of copper is also related to small holes in your arteries as well. So somebody who goes completely grey very young is more at risk of like heart problems and heart attacks than someone who keeps their natural hair colour for longer, because all these systems are related to each other. And also my energy increased as well because of all the minerals I was getting from blackstrap molasses, that I instantly had more energy as well. Like my legs would really ache when I was walking, even though I was taking quite a lot of exercise at the time and I was just pushing through it, but like aching in the back of my calves, like a tired kind of aching, like I've been walking for a really long time. And that instantly went away as well when I was taking the blackstrap molasses when I first started. So this is how I came to be taking the blackstrap molasses and why I've got all these jars. Because I buy them online, you see. If you buy them in the supermarket, a lot of supermarkets don't carry them. But I can get them, I think it's for $3.60 a jar or something like that it is. When I buy them online from this one particular supplier. So you don't want to be building up excess minerals in your body though, like heavy metals like copper and iron. You can have too much of them. That causes you problems. So I do also take things that are chelators, which remove excess heavy metals from the body. One of which is milk kefir, and the other of which is coriander, which I have every morning in my smoothie. So yeah, and I stopped eating seed oils. I mean, I do eat them occasionally if they're in products that are already made. But in the food I prepare, I never use them. I only use olive oil and beef dripping and lard, which we're told is unhealthy, but it isn't. So processed foods, I hardly eat at all. And anyway, that cured me completely of all the damage that psychiatric drugs had done. It cured me in the space of it. I think milk kefir cured me of the worst of it in about 2 weeks. It's an absolutely miraculous. It's a miraculous substance, milk kefir. Particularly the stuff you make yourself, because it's got over 50 strains of beneficial bacteria and yeast in it that survives stomach acid and goes into your guts. It's just like in some cultures they think it was given to them by the gods, and I can understand why people would think that, because it's absolutely miraculous. It really is. The effect it had on my health, virtually instantly. And the reason it didn't have it more instantly is because if you've never drunk milk kefir before, you can't just drink a glass of it. You have to wean yourself into it like a teaspoon at a time. It's such a vigorous culture that it takes over everything. Replaces pathogenic organisms in your body. And detoxifies it of heavy metals. It's just miraculous. I can't sing the praises of milk kefir enough. It cures everything in my experience. Also, if you've got a stomach upset like food poisoning or something, normally it wouldn't be a good thing to drink milk products. But if you drink milk kefir, it outcompetes the pathogens because it's such a strong and vigorous culture. And not only that, my kitchen is very badly ventilated because it doesn't have any windows in it. And so I was having big problems with mould around the sink. Even if I cleaned it, I hardly get any now because kefir culture. I'm not obviously putting kefir in the sink, but I'm washing up the utensils and receptacles I've had the kefir in. And there's hardly any mould ever grows around there now because it's just, it can't compete with the kefir culture because it's so vigorous. I've tried water kefir as well, But I mean, I was already drinking milk kefir at the time. And the other thing is that for water kefir, you only feed it with sugar. And the culture isn't so vigorous. And I think like when it's in your system, it's because it's fed on sugar, it's wanting sugar. Because your microbiome also controls the kind of foods that you crave. And we've got 4 times as many microorganisms in and on our body than the number of our own cells. So our microbiome is phenomenally important. When I was first researching all this, I saw a video where a woman was talking about lactofermentation. Because other lacto-fermented products I've used as well, like sauerkraut, preserved lemons, fermented carrots, kimchi, those kind of things. They're all very beneficial to the health because you're controlling the microorganisms in your body by using them. And there was one woman who was giving a talk on YouTube about lactofermentation, and she said, I think humans are actually only vectors for other microorganisms because we've just got so many, 4 times more than the number of our own cells. So anyway, that's my talk on lactofermentation and blackstrap molasses. And the fact that I couldn't believe that all of this would be so powerful when it's not what I'd heard before. And a lot of the dietary advice I found out through the naturopathic approach is the opposite to what we're usually told. Like seed oils being more healthy than saturated fats, for example. And now, when I have anything that's got seed oils in it, it tastes rancid to me. And they said that seed oils go rancid very quickly. And now I know they do because I can taste them as rancid. Because I'm just not used to consuming seed oils. So if it's something that's got a minuscule amount in it, wouldn't taste rancid to me. But if you fried chips in it, like I went to Glastonbury, I think it was the year before last. Well, in Yorkshire, they fry fish and chips in beef dripping. A traditional fish and chip shop will. The only people who don't fry in beef dripping are foreigners. Like, foreigners come over here and open takeaways. In Yorkshire, I mean. And then they fry the fish and chips in vegetable oil. And it tastes rancid. And I went to Glastonbury. I bought some fish and chips in Glastonbury. And they tasted rancid. And that's because of the vegetable oil that they'd fried them in. Whereas I didn't have that experience before, even though I didn't prefer it, compared to fish and chips fried in beef dripping, which is what you get in Yorkshire, which tastes phenomenally beautiful, in my opinion. But, so I didn't prefer it. I thought it was relatively tasteless previously, but now it tastes rancid to me. It tasted really rancid. And I ate them all, but it wasn't such a pleasant experience, and also it felt really heavy in my stomach as well. So I'll stop talking about it now and read my book. It's only because of the jars I came onto that subject. I'm going to feed me sourdough starter later as well, and I'm going to make some liquid soap, probably tomorrow, but I'll weigh out the ingredients today. I've still got quite a bit left, but I don't like getting down to the last part of it, and then like feeling I've got to make some more, because it's a bit of a hassle making it in my constricted environment. So I'll just do it now. Chapter 12. The benefits this night causes in the soul. 1. This glad night and purgation causes many benefits, even though to the soul it seemingly deprives it of them. So numerous are these benefits that, just as Abraham made a great feast on the day of his son Isaac's weaning, Genesis 21:8, there is rejoicing in heaven that God has now taken from this soul its swaddling clothes, that he has put it down from his arms and is making it walk alone, that he is weaning it from the delicate and sweet food of infants and making it eat bread with crust, and that the soul is beginning to taste the food of the strong, the infused contemplation of which we have spoken, which in these sensory aridities and darknesses is given to the spirit that is dry and empty of the satisfaction of sense. 2. The first and chief benefit this dry and dark night of contemplation causes is the knowledge of self and of one's own misery. Besides the fact that all the favours God imparts to the soul are ordinarily wrapped in this knowledge, the aridities and voids of the faculties in relation to the abundance previously experienced and the difficulty encountered in the practice of virtue make the soul recognise its own lowliness and misery, which was not apparent in the time of its prosperity. There is a good figure of this in Exodus, where God, desiring to humble the children of Israel and make them know themselves, ordered them to remove their festive garments and the adornments they had been wearing in the desert. From now on, leave aside your festive ornaments and put on common working garments, that you may be aware of the treatment you deserve. Exodus 33:5. This was like saying, since the clothing you wear, being of festivity and mirth, is an occasion for your not feeling as lowly as you in fact are, put it aside, so that seeing the vileness of your dress you may know yourself and your just deserts. As a result, the soul recognises the truth about its misery, of which it was formerly ignorant. When it was walking in festivity, gratification, consolation and supporting God, it was more content, believing that it was serving God in some way. Though this idea of serving God may not be explicitly formed in a person's mind, at least some notion of it is deeply embedded within, owing to the satisfaction derived from one's spiritual exercises. Now that the soul is clothed in these other garments of labour, dryness and desolation, and its former lights have been darkened, it possesses more authentic lights in this most excellent and necessary virtue of self-knowledge. It considers itself to be nothing, and finds no satisfaction in self, because it is aware that of itself it neither does nor can do anything. God esteems this lack of self-satisfaction and dejection. Let me start that again. God esteems this lack of self-satisfaction and the dejection persons have about not serving him more than all their former deeds and gratifications, however notable they may have been, since they were the occasion of many imperfections and a great deal of ignorance. Not only the benefits we mentioned result from this garment of dryness, but also those of which we will now speak, and many more, for they flow from self-knowledge as from their fount. 3. First, individuals commune with God more respectfully and courteously, the way one should always converse with the Most High. In the prosperity of their satisfaction and consolation as beginners, they did not act thus, for that satisfying delight made them somewhat more daring with God than was proper, and more discourteous and inconsiderate. This is what happened to Moses. When he heard God speaking to him, he was blinded by that gratification and desire, and without any further thought would have dared to approach God, if he had not been ordered to stop and take off his shoes. Exodus 3:4-5. This instance denotes the respect and discretion, the nakedness of appetite, with which one ought to commune with God. Consequently, when Moses was obedient to this command, he was so discreet and cautious that Scripture says, he not only dared not approach, but did not even dare look. Exodus 3:6, Acts 7:32. Having left aside the shoes of his appetites and gratifications, He was fully aware of his misery in the sight of God, for this was the manner in which it was fitting for him to hear God's word. Similarly, Job was not prepared for converse with God by means of those delights and glories that he says he was accustomed to experience in his God. But the preparation for this converse embodied nakedness on a dunghill, abandonment and even persecution by his friends, the fullness of anguish and bitterness, and the sight of the earth round about him covered with worms. Job 2:8, 30, 17-18. Yet the Most High God, he who raises the poor from the dunghill, Psalm 112:7, was then pleased to descend and speak face to face with him and reveal the deep mysteries of his wisdom, which he never did before in the time of Job's prosperity. Job 38-41. Since this is the proper moment, we ought to point out. Did I say we moved on to another point now, point 4. Since this is the proper moment, we ought to point out another benefit resulting from this night and dryness of the sensory appetite, so that the prophecy, "Your light will illumine the darkness," Isaiah 58:10, may be verified. God will give illumination by bestowing on the soul not only knowledge of its own misery and lowliness, but also knowledge of his grandeur and majesty. When the sensory appetite's gratifications and supports are quenched, the intellect is left clean and free to understand the truth. For even though these appetites and pleasures concern spiritual things, they blind and impede the spirit. Similarly, the anguish and dryness of the senses illumine and quicken the intellect, as Isaiah affirms. Vexation makes one understand, Isaiah 28:19. But God also, by means of this dark and dry night of contemplation, supernaturally instructs in his divine wisdom the soul that is empty and unhindered, which is the requirement for his divine impouring, which he did not do through the former satisfactions and pleasures. 5. Isaiah explains this clearly. To whom will God teach his knowledge, and to whom will he explain his message? To them that are weaned, he says, from the milk, and to them who are drawn away from the breasts. Isaiah 28:9. This passage indicates that the preparation for this divine impouring is not the former milk of spiritual sweetness, or aid from the breast of the discursive meditations of the sensory faculties that the soul enjoyed, but the privation of one and a withdrawal from the other. In order to hear God, people should stand firm and be detached in their sense, life, and affections, as the prophet himself declares, "I will stand on my watch," brackets, with detached appetite, end brackets, "and will fix my foot," brackets, "I will not meditate with the sensory faculties," end bracket, in order to contemplate, understand, in brackets, what God says to me. Hebrews 2:1. We conclude that self-knowledge flows first from this dry night, and that from this knowledge, as from its source, proceeds the other knowledge of God. Hence Saint Augustine said to God, "Let me know myself, Lord, and I will know you." It says here in the footnote, see Soliloquia 2:1:1 in Minya, PL 32, A85. For as the philosophers say, one extreme is clearly known by the other. Footnote 5, from the philosophical axiom, contrarium endum est ratio. 6. For a more complete proof of the efficacy of this sensory night in producing through its dryness and destitution the light he received from God, we will quote that passage from David in which the great power of this night in relation to the lofty knowledge of God is clearly shown. He proclaims, "In a desert land without water, dry and without a way, I appeared before you to be able to see your power and your glory." Psalm 63, 1-2. David's teaching here is admirable, that the means to knowledge of the glory of God were not the many spiritual delights and gratifications he had received, but the sensory aridities and detachments referred to by the dry and desert land. And it is also wonderful that, as he says, the way to the experience and vision of the power of God did not consist in ideas and meditations about God, of which he had made extensive use, but it consisted in not being able either to grasp God with ideas or walk by means of discursive, imaginative meditation, which is here indicated by the land without a way. Hence, the dark night with its aridities and voids is the means to the knowledge of both God and self. However, the knowledge given in this night is not as plenteous and abundant as that of the other night of spirit, for the knowledge of this night is, as it were, the foundation of the other. Footnote 4. Here John concludes his treatment of the basic benefit. The following numbers deal with the benefits opposite, the imperfections, and more properly belong in chapter 12. 7. In the dryness and emptiness of this night of the appetite, a person also procures spiritual humility, that virtue opposed to the first capital vice, spiritual pride. Through this humility acquired by means of self-knowledge, individuals are purged of all those imperfections of the vice of pride into which they fell in the time of their prosperity. Aware of their own dryness and wretchedness, the thought of being more advanced than others does not even occur in the first movements, as it did before. On the contrary, they realise that others are better. 8. From this humility stems love of neighbour, for they esteem them and do not judge them as they did before, when they were aware that they enjoyed an intense fervour, while others did not. These persons know only their misery and keep it so much in sight that they have no opportunity to watch anyone else's conduct. David, while in this night, gives an admirable manifestation of such a state of soul. I became dumb and was humbled, and I kept silent in good things, and my sorrow was renewed. Psalm 39:2. He says this because it seemed to him that his blessings had to come to an end, that not only was he unable to find words for them, but he also became silent concerning his neighbour, in the sorrow he experienced from the knowledge of his own misery. These individuals also become submissive and obedient in their spiritual journey, since they are so aware of their own wretchedness. They not only listen to the teaching of others, but even desire to be directed and told what to do by anyone at all. The effective presumption they sometimes had in their prosperity leaves them. And finally, as they proceed on their journey, all the other imperfections of this first vice, spiritual pride, are swept away. I'm going to stop there because the next chapter's really long and my video's already 33 minutes. So, I think there's some people who from that would conclude that St. John of the Cross was very passive and he never confronted bad behaviour. But it's absolutely not true at all. He would call people frauds when he thought them so, for example. And he would tell others to act in this manner as well. So although he says on the one hand that these souls consider others better, I think that's more in a kind of inner attitude than in terms of practically advising other people individually. Like it's more a general attitude than in terms of the advice he might give to people individually. depending on the state of their soul, the place on their journey that they were. I'll see if I can find an example of that. If I can't quickly, then I'll just leave it and maybe do it another time. I just can't think of one off the top of my head. Well, there was, I think it was a nun who was claiming to be a visionary, and she gathered quite a following. And someone said to him, "Are you not coming to see her?" And he said, "Why should I go and see a fraud?" So there are people in the church who think that because there's this teaching that you should have an humble attitude and consider others better, that you've got no right to confront abusive behaviour or complain about it. And that was used a lot to try and manipulate me in the Church of England. I'm completely immune to it now. Because if somebody says to me, "Oh, well, you're very judgmental and you're a bad Christian," or something like that, I just say, "Well, okay, you're right. I am a bad Christian. But that's not what we're talking about right now. What we're talking about is this behaviour, and you need to stop it." Because unfortunately, that's the attitude of narcissistic people, that they're above everybody else. They're continually complaining and judging everyone else, but no one's ever allowed to say anything about the way that they behave or their attitude. This isn't related, it's from the sayings of light and love. And it's something that's so important. It's so important because another way that was or is used in the Church of England has been used by Rowan Williams to try and manipulate me is that well, you need to be occupying some grand office if you want to proclaim the gospel, or if you want to be doing God's will in the world. Then you should compromise your principles, compromise Christian principles in order to be more appealing to other people, or there's some great work that you have to do and you need to compromise yourself in order to be accepted and to do this great work which you're going to be prevented from doing otherwise. And so this is the sayings of light and love, number 12, which I just came across when I was trying to look for an example of what I was talking about. So it's number 12. God desires the smallest degree of purity of conscience in you more than all the works you can perform. Right, number 30. A soul that is hard because of self-love grows harder. Number 28. The very pure spirit does not bother about the regard of others or human respect, but communes inwardly with God, alone and in solitude as to all forms, and with delightful tranquillity, for the knowledge of God is received in divine silence. That's not related to the point I was making either, but Yeah, what they used, I mean, they obviously weren't using St. John of the Cross, but they used the saying of Jesus, judge not, and you shall not be judged. This means you can't confront abusers or complain about abusers in the Church of England, otherwise you're a bad Christian. Basically, you let the clergy rape and abuse you, and if you confront them or complain about them, you're a bad Christian. That's spiritual abuse. They're taking people's desire for God and desire to follow His way to be able to force their perverted desires on people. "46. If you make use of your reason, you are like one who eats substantial food. But if you are moved by the satisfaction of your will, you are like one who eats insipid fruit." "54. Souls will be unable to reach perfection who do not strive to be content with having nothing, in such fashion that their natural and spiritual desire is satisfied with emptiness. For this is necessary in order to reach the highest tranquillity, the peace of spirit. Hence the love of God in the pure and simple soul is almost continually in act. "56. The soul that journeys to God but does not shake off its cares and quiet its appetites is like one who drags a cart uphill." People who are not really Christian, but masquerade as Christians in order to belong to a certain group or another, are never going to practice Christian virtue. It's simply a fact. Because they're there for some reason related to the gratification of themselves, and that's really what they're looking for. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.